Good morning. Consciousness. Take a pause, close your eyes, and think about, wonder, what is it like to be you? Not just the thoughts in your head, but the subjective experience of being alive, aware, and connected to the world around you. Now, open your eyes. Look at something around you that has a particular color. I'm looking at something red. So you have the subjective experience of seeing red. That subjective experience is uniquely yours, not mine. That particular experience is what I'm calling consciousness. Consciousness is your inner first person experience, what it feels like to be you right now. Seeing, hearing, thinking, hurting. Philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote an article that has gained some notoriety. What is it like to be a bat? So this is what leading philosopher and something of a rock star, philosopher David Chalmers has called the hard problem of consciousness. Why and how does your consciousness arise from physical processes in your brain? We don't know how to put consciousness in a lab or study it directly. Science can get at most things it wants to study, not consciousness. The hard problem then is why all these neural processes feel like anything at all. Why isn't it just a series of events, like a computer processing some data? So the easy problem of consciousness has to do with brain mechanics. We can study the neural, chemical, and nerve processes of pain, for example. We know what happens when a nerve fires and how signals travel through the system. But we have no consensus theory to explain the subjective experience of consciousness itself. Philosophers, neuroscientists, psychologists, scholars of religion like me, cognitive scientists, biologists, linguists, even physicists are all trying to solve the hard problem of consciousness, this puzzle. And even though we don't have a complete theory of consciousness, there has been a trend in recent decades to seeing it as more expansive, beyond humans, to certain animals, for example. Maybe dolphins have some measure of consciousness. Does a roach have some subjective experience at some level? Some thinkers even go farther, arguing that consciousness is present in everything. This is a view called panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is elemental to all of reality. So now, panpsychism doesn't mean that every atom is some little conscious person, but rather that consciousness is in some sense a fundamental feature of the universe. So from another direction, we can talk about the origin of consciousness. So as we noted, some argue that it is fundamental, like something, space or time are fundamental. They're present everywhere in some basic way. And that's one way to understand space and time. And so to consider emergence of consciousness as fundamental, consciousness as fundamental. And emergence can be a complicated notion, understood differently. Oxygen and hydrogen, for example, combine to create water, which has the property of wetness. So wetness emerges from the combination, but it isn't present in the atoms alone. So some say consciousness is like that. It's an emergent property that occurs over time. So fundamental or emergent. Now, why does all this matter? Is this just fun exploration, mental exploration? Well, it has very real-world implications for ethics, for example. So consciousness, an entity that has consciousness, we might think of that as a person who has rights, different from, say, a leaf that I can step on without some moral issue. in the same way. So understanding consciousness could change how we see ourselves, our place in the universe, our responsibility to other beings, human, animal, or even artificial. And my particular interest in consciousness, as you know from the other videos on the channel, is the relationship of or the implications it has for transhumanism. So just a couple of examples: transhumanism, machine consciousness, AGI, artificial general intelligence. Should we have a machine that achieves AGI? Some think in the next few years, maybe. Would that machine have a subjective experience? Now, the pushback would be that human consciousness relies on metabolic processes that a silicon-based machine does not have, and the debate rages. Another transhumanist project, whole brain emulation or mind uploading. So big if the mind or who we are consists of our memory and personality, and we figure out a way to transfer that into some sort of platform, is consciousness transmitted with the memory and personality? Would you wake up, with this sense of you? For some religionists, consciousness is just really kind of another way of talking about soul or spirit. It is what is individual to me. So as we make progress on consciousness studies, it will have implications for how theologians of different religions think about God, humans, how we show up in the world, and our relationship to transhumanism, which is, of course, has to do with breathtakingly advanced technologies that will impact our human experience. Thank you for watching, and just subscribe to this channel for latest updates. Thank you.